Thank you, Kai, and good evening, SVS members. Thank you for joining us for this special and first of its kind town hall. A couple of housekeeping details before we start our event. As Kai mentioned, we will not be conducting any polls or a Q&A with you this evening. If you have any comments, please share them with us through the chat feature. Membership is the lifeblood of the SVS. Our society is only as strong as the commitment of our members, leaders, staff, and partners to work together to achieve our mission. Advancing and optimizing the care of our patients as well as our specialty is what we're here for. Member involvement and engagement is what drives the SVS forward and keeps us in a position to thrive in the future. Developing and sustaining a diverse group of engaged and talented volunteers is the key to this future. This has been one of the primary areas of focus of my presidency at the SVS, and I'm delighted to facilitate the town hall tonight to give you a window into how the appointments process works, how it's evolving to meet the needs of the future, and of course, to announce our candidates for the SVS Vice President and open the 2021 online election. Of all the challenges I faced in my various leadership roles with the SVS, the Appointments Committee may have been the most important. SVS is blessed to have a membership deeply committed to engagement within the society, and we always have more applicants than we do volunteer positions year after year. With over 30 committees and task forces, it is an incredible challenge to blend and balance the right mix of knowledge, expertise, and diversity characteristics on every committee. And while no appointments process can achieve perfection, I want you to take away from this town hall tonight that the Appointments Committee spends over 20 hours in meetings every year striving to achieve this ideal and continuing to try to improve the process. It is a humbling task, and I want to thank the members of the Appointments and Nominations Committee for their service to our society. It is now my pleasure to turn the program over to AbuRahma, President-elect of the SVS and Chair of the 2021 Appointments Committee, Dr. AbuRahma.
Thank you, Ron, for your leadership as our President. Good evening, SVS member. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm pleased to present to you the highlights of the Appointment Committee activities over the past year. As Ron noted, this is amongst the most challenging jobs in our society. We're focused not only on filling all of our vacancies on committees and task forces, but evaluating them, evolving our process to ensure it meets the changing needs and demographics of the society. Before I provide you with a snapshot of the most recent appointment work, I would like to sincerely thank the member of the Appointment Committee, and this group consisted of what you see in this picture here. The President, Dr. Ronald Dalman, the Vice President, Dr. Mike Dalsing, Brett Ollery representing the young surgeons, representing the community practice, is Jeff Datillo, and representing the DEI committee is Dr. Bernadette Oliveira. Thank you. This group spent over 20 hours reviewing committee member evaluation, new applicant material, vetting appointment to the councils and committee for the 21-22 volunteer year. As you noted from this slide, there are many different types of opportunities for members to become engaged. Some are determined by the bylaws as councils, others appointed by either the appointment committee or the executive board, such as committees, task force, sections, and writing groups. When counted together, there are around 650 active volunteer appointments, 530 of which are appointed by the appointment committee. For purpose of my presentation this evening, I will focus only on the appointment to the SVS councils and committees. The SVS leadership has been focused on evolving and improving the appointment process past several years to keep pace with changes in our society, culture, and demography. Up until 2018, 3 leaders of the SVS comprised the appointment committee: the president-elect as chair, and vice presidents. There was limited application information and no limit to the number of committees a member could apply for to which they could be appointed. It was not uncommon to find members serving on 3 or even 4 appointments. With the passage of the last year bylaw referendum by the SVS member, the appointments committee was extended to include representatives from young surgeons, the DI committee, and the community practice section. This proved to be very wise and enormously helpful to the process. Having diverse perspective and more sets of eyes enrich the deliberation. However, it was no less difficult or challenging. Further, this year we required more demographic information on the applications, a brief statement of interest for each applicant, and members were limited to applying at no more than 2 committees or being appointed to no more than 2 committees. The appointment process is carried out over 3 to 4 month period, beginning with gathering, evaluation, and opening applications, and conclude with the final approval of the executive board to proceed with the appointment. There are several points along the way where the committee goes back and check for desired balance. We made a special effort this year to communicate to both those who were and were not appointed, encouraging those who were not appointed to please be patient. All members who applied and were not appointed would be giving strong consideration if they apply again next year. I encourage all members to stay engaged in other ways within the SVS and or the family of vascular societies. This table, as you noticed, will show all committees and task force in the SVS and how they are organized in each of the 5 councils. The 5 councils align with the 5 domains of the SVS strategic plan. The last column, as noted here, lists the committee that have oversight by the executive board as they are part of the SVS governance, member value, or business. The appointment committee focuses on the committees and task force that fall within each council or oversight of the executive board. All appointed members are evaluated each year. Council chairs are evaluated by the executive board. Committee chairs and vice chairs are evaluated by council chairs. Committee chairs evaluate committee members. The appointments committee complete its work going council by council. First, the chair and vice chairs of the various committees and task forces that comprise the council are discussed and selected. Chairs serve 1-year term, renewable for up to 3 maximum of 3 years based on performance evaluation. After the chairs and vice chairs are selected, then the vacancies within each are discussed and filled. On an annual basis, approximately 1/3 of each committee turns over. This year, we appointed over 160 vacant positions. As the appointment committee works together through each committee, it attempts to balance the skill and experience needed with desired diversity characteristics. Frequent discussions include scanning of the initial appointment to ensure there is geographic, experience, practice type, gender, and ethnicity diversity where possible. However, this is not achievable 100% of the time, as we are limited to selecting from the pool of the applicants that have applied. I want to emphasize this point very strongly. We're limited to selecting members from those who apply for a specific committee. And if we are short of filling vacancies, we review the pool of as yet unappointed members to appoint as many as possible if they have the requisite background required. The most important thing is that all members who wish to volunteer must apply. The larger the pool of applicants, the better. Now, for the result of our work this year, the appointment committee recommended reappointment and appointment of totaling 535 positions. Of the 535 appointments, roughly 31% of them were vacant positions due to turnover terms, of which 15 are reserved for outside liaison appointment, leaving 149 positions to be filled. 237 members responded to our call for volunteer and were able to appoint 149 members. That's roughly 63% of these members into committees. For those who were not appointed this year, we have not forgotten about you. There will be additional opportunities to become involved through task forces, writing groups, editorial groups, etc. throughout the year. So please stay tuned to the SVS Pulse, e-blast, social media posts, and your email to ensure that you see the future calls for you to become involved. And please apply again next year. Of the 88 not appointed this year, 82% were male and only 18% were female. 47% were white, 27% Asian, 10% Hispanic, 2% Black. All non-appointment will be given a first consideration next year. By limiting the number of appointments to no more than 2 per member, the appointment committee tried to increase the number of first-time volunteers this year. Of the 237 who applied, roughly 2/3 received an appointment, which to me is fairly good for this process. Of the 149 who received an appointment, over half, 52%, were first-time appointee within the last year. 38% are first-time appointee within the last 5 years. So our effort to engage more members who have never been appointed are working. Now, to provide you with some additional demographic for the 2021-22 councils and committees. The SVS Council committee leaders, chairs, and vice chairs represent a diverse cross-section of the SVS membership. This year, the leadership is primarily male and Caucasian, but there is intentional involvement in appointing and cultivating engagement from members who identify from diverse ethnic background and to increase the number of women as members and leaders. In overall general membership of the SVS, we have roughly an 80%, 20% ratio of male versus female. The SVS Council and Committee Chair and Vice Chair are 61% male, 33% female. Interestingly, 2/3 male and 1/3 female split mirror the demography of the population of the new trainee in vascular surgery. So the SVS, I believe, is coming into alignment with the future demography of its membership. In the overall general membership of the SVS, 70% of members are white, 14% are Asian, 6% are Hispanic, 2% are Black. Ethnicity is much more challenging, but I promise you, progress is being made. SVS Council Chair and Vice Chairs are 61% white, 18% Asian, 3% Hispanic, and 3% are Black. This is a high level comparison from last year council and committee leadership to this year. As you can see, we have increased the representation of female leaders. We will continue to evaluate and appoint members who have the best talent and skill set to deliver on the mission of the council or the committees, but also ensure that there's a focus on diversity. Now, let's look at the committee appointment. Again, keep in mind, the overall SVS membership is currently 80% male, 20% female, 71% white, 14% Asian, 6% Hispanic, and 2% Black. Overall committee appointments are 66% male, 20% female. As noted earlier, these percentages are approximately the demographic of trainee in our specialty. Ethnicity is much more challenging, but good, solid progress is being made here with 57% of the appointee white, 15% Asian, 6% Hispanic, and 4% Black. The SVS begins its new volunteer year June 1st to correspond with the VAM. Committee orientation material will be sent to you soon. I want to thank all members who have served and rolling off, and thanking all of the appointees for the coming year for your effort to come. Again, if you are not appointed, keep in dialogue with us. I thank again the appointment committee and members for their hard work and dedication to this process. I'm looking forward to working with all the councils and committee this upcoming year to deliver on activities in support of our SVS strategic plan. Thank you for all our great members of the Society of Vascular Surgery, and you are the SVS. I turn it back to our President, Dr. Dalman.
Thank you, Ali, for your effective and dedicated leadership as chair of this year's appointments committee. It is, in fact, become a year-long process, and I think the results speak for themselves. It is now my pleasure to introduce Clem Darling, chairman of the 2021 SVS Nominations Committee. Dr. Darling.
Thank you very much, Ron, President Dalman. As with the appointments process, the composition work and selection process for the SVS officers has been evolving over the past several years. As members are aware, due to our bylaws changes approved by the membership, SVS held its first online election last year, and 530 of the SVS voter eligible members made their voices heard by voting for candidate for vice president and chair and treasurer. Prior to online election, voting was restricted to those attending the annual business meeting, and the highest vote total ever during that time was 300 votes. So right out of the blocks, the online election has engaged more SVS members. This year will be the first time we have completed a full cycle in preparing for an election, and we hope that for more than 14% of the SVS voter eligible members will participate and vote. The singular vote of the SVS Nominations Committee is to select candidates to place in the ballot for each of the vacant officer positions. This year, there was only one vacancy to fill, the position of Vice President. There is an open call for nomination that goes out in February 1st of each year. Nominations come to the Nominations Committee for members at large, self-nominations, or for Nominations Committee itself. The Nominations Committee is composed of 7 members and 1 liaison. The composition included 3 immediate past presidents of the SVS, an at-large member elected by the SVS membership, a member elected by the SVS Strategic Board, the vice chair of the Community Practice Section, the chair of the SVS Leadership Development Committee, and a liaison from the SVS Young Surgeons Committee. I'm pleased to note that this is the first time in SVS history the nomination committee was comprised of 50% female members, much like my practice. I want to thank all of you, the members, for the hard work this year. They all were very vocal in their thoughts, and they did a superb job. The work of the nominations committee is to review and further improve the nominations and selection process each year. Select 2 candidates for each vacancy as required by bylaws, report the deliberations to the membership, which I am doing this evening, and then oversee the election and report the results when concluded, which will occur at the June 16th virtual annual business meeting. The eligibility criteria, qualifications, and time commitments are made transparent in the nomination process. Here are the eligibility criteria for nominees to be considered for the SVS officer positions. We also make sure that all potential nominees are aware of the substantial time commitment and accept this responsibility. We have developed a set of desired leadership criteria we share with the potential nominees and that the nomination committee uses to discuss and filter nominations. This year, 23 nominations were received, of which 12 completed the full nomination process, all of which were outstanding and could serve well in the level of leadership in the SVS now and in the future. I would mention that the 12 that completed their applications, there were also many who dropped out due to other circumstances. We thank all the nominees and encourage each of you to continue to aspire to lead the SVS. We need your support, we need your participation, and we need you to be leaders of the future. Now I'm pleased to introduce your candidates for Vice President of the SVS and to have them join me in a brief introduction and question and answer period. The first candidate to introduce is Dr. Joseph Mills, Baylor College of Medicine, Houston, Texas. Congratulations and welcome, Joe. The second candidate is Dr. William Schutz, Texas Vascular Association, Plano, Texas. Congratulations and welcome, Bill. We thought it would be great to invite the candidates to the town hall for an informal chat so members get to know them a little bit better. I will ask a series of questions and provide opportunity for each candidate to answer, alternating between candidates with regard to first response. Candidates, please keep your answers to no more than 2 minutes. Let's start with Joe. The election ballot and SVS will be sending out background information for the two of you, but members may not know you. Please take 2 minutes to introduce yourself, where you trained, where you practice, and your career interests and goals.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. I'm Joe Mills. I was born in San Francisco, California. My dad was there, part of the GI Bill, going to college. I grew up, I went briefly to grade school in Arizona, but I grew up in the Washington, D.C. area and fell in love with medicine, ended up going to medical school at Georgetown, which at the time I was a medical student. The tuition shot up to $10,000 a year, which doesn't seem like a lot now, but back then it was, and it was $20,000 by the time I finished. So I joined the Air Force in order to pay for my medical education, which led me to San Antonio. So I did my general surgery training at Wilford Hall, Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio. Became interested in vascular surgery because of the mentorship of Jeb Hallett and Jay Robinson. They had a long vascular tradition there. And the year I applied for training in vascular was the year that programs became ACGME RRC certified. So there were a number of good programs that weren't certified yet, and I had to change my list, and I ended up randomly matching with John Porter in Oregon. So I did my vascular training there, went back and finished my Air Force commitment, spent 2 years with Dennis Bandick at the University of South Florida, and then I loved the West and the Southwest, so I came back to Arizona when Vic Bernhardt retired, spent 20 years in Tucson, and I've been now in Houston for 6 years. I love all of vascular surgery. I fell in love with vascular surgery when I was a third-year resident. I love the anatomy. I love the physiology. I love the vascular lab. I'm a big advocate for our specialty, and I love training residents. I think the residents are our future. So I've spent a lot of my efforts over the years in training residents and being an advocate for our specialty, especially in the area of chronic limb-threatening ischemia, which I think almost everywhere I've gone has been neglected. So thank you.
Bill, the same question. The election ballot and SVS will be sending out background information for the two of you, but please give us 2 minutes to introduce yourself, where you trained, where you practice, and your career interests and goals.
Thank you, Clem. First of all, I'd like to say that I'm humbled and honored by this nomination. And I'd like to congratulate Dr. Mills as well on his nomination. I don't think y'all could have picked a better person. And I'd like to thank the SVS for this opportunity as well. So I grew up in a small county in Florida. We were ranked 60 out of 67th in economic production because we were an agricultural county. But I was fortunate enough to have a father's position and have privilege, so I was able to get out of Florida. And I went to college at Johns Hopkins University, where I thought I could play lacrosse and found out I couldn't. So I ended up leaving there to go to medical school at Baylor in Texas, where Dr. Mills is. And that was my first trip to Texas, and I fell in love with Texas. So you all know Dr. Ken Maddox, and usually when he gives you advice, you better listen, but I didn't listen to him. I graduated from school in 3 years back when you could do that, so I could do my fourth year as a paid intern. Basically did my fourth year of medical school as an internship and doing a rotating internship at Baylor. Then I went over to UAB to do the 5 years of general surgery, and I picked UAB because I needed some discipline and I needed some structure, and they provided all of that very well, especially the discipline. I fell in love with vascular surgery when I was an intern there. I was rotating at the VA on my third rotation on the vascular service, and this nice vet had femoral popliteal bypass done for claudication, and to be able to walk to the bedside the next day and feel a bounding pulse and a warm foot was very impactful. And from that point on, I decided that was the path I wanted to follow. I was fortunate to match with the Baylor University Medical Center in Dallas for my vascular residency, and it's Dr. Jesse Thompson's legacy program. And so that was my second tour to Texas. And once they got me back here the second time, they haven't been able to get rid of me. So I entered private practice following my fellowship, and 7 years later joined and founded Texas Vascular Associates, the legacy group from Jesse Thompson. At TVA, we all basically do general vascular surgery. All of us are assigned to do everything, although certain people have found niches at which they excel at. So my focus was mainly for many, many years on educating the residents and running the Rutherford session, Friday mornings at 6:30, week after week after week. I've also attempted to climb that long, steep hill of getting more clinical research into the community practice area and trying to elevate the vascular game at all the hospitals I work at. My last 5 years, my main focus has been basically serving the society and trying to give back. Thanks, Clem.
Thank you very much, Bill. Now, Bill, this is for you again. What keeps you up at night regarding the current and future practice of vascular surgery in our specialty?
Well, actually, I'd like to say that I sleep pretty good at night, and there's two reasons for that. I see Dr. AbuRahma laughing. They took me off the call schedule. It was probably a patient protection thing, but they took me off the call schedule last year. But really, I think the society is in a great position with the leadership that's been in place, and working in collaboration with our executive director, Dr. Ken Slaw. I think. From a structural standpoint and a programmatic standpoint, the society is really doing very well and continuing to improve year after year. If you have to pin me down on one thing that does bother me or concern me, it would basically be in the area of advocacy. Last fall, we were staring at a precipitous drop in reimbursement for our services, and it would have been very hurtful, impactful, and could even be catastrophic for some of our members. However, the PAC under the leadership of Drs. Connolly and Matos did a great job, had a banner year in raising money. We joined with the Surgical Coalition to push back. We got our members involved, and our members responded, and we were able to contribute to reversing those. But I don't think the battle's won. I think this is something that really could come back again, and probably will. And I don't know if anybody remembers, but back in the 90s, anesthesia got hit with steep cuts, and their numbers of medical students going into that residency went down by 30%. In the first decade of this century, the same thing happened to cardiac surgery, and it took them 10 years to recover. I think what bailed them out was going with the integrated residency. So I don't think now is the time to take our foot off the gas. We really need to keep pushing on this, and we need to really focus on advocating for the value of what we do in our services.
Thank you, Bill. Joe, the same question. What is keeping you up at night regarding the current and future practice of vascular surgery in our specialty?
Well, I have insomnia, so I'm up at night a lot anyway. I'm a night owl, if you know me, and get emails from me at 2 a.m. But I would echo some of what Dr. Schutz said, but I guess I'm a little more sanguine. This vascular surgery has been unbelievable to me in my life, and I've made a big part of my life. And I think I've had a huge impact on patients, and I still love what I do. But I want to preserve that career for the future vascular trainees, and not just preserve what we used to do, but protect and grow our practice. And I think my biggest concern is how do we do that? And I think the SVS has done an amazing job responding to different societal changes. The biggest things we did, I think, were one was be adopters of endovascular surgery, because I think we'd have been extinct if we hadn't done that. And the second thing was to become a primary specialty such that we could have a 0-5 applicant pool. And that probably has done more for our specialty than almost anything. So it immediately attracted a different pool of applicants. It doesn't seem to have shrunk the existing pool of people who go through general surgery, but I found the 0-5 people really exciting to teach. And I want to pass them on a legacy and a future. So the concern I have is we have to brand ourselves better, and we're starting to do that. We've made huge efforts, but I don't think we're close to what we should be doing. I don't think people still realize, despite the valuation project, despite our early efforts at branding, how hard vascular surgeons work for their patients and how we really are the ones that provide comprehensive care. So I think we can't pound that message enough. And I think we've got to get more attention from payers, hospital administrators, and we got to reach out and get more recruits into our specialty. And we don't want to become extinct. And I don't think we will, but I think that the things are more slippery than we think. I wouldn't relax at all. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. What do you think the SVS needs to do to best position its members to thrive in the future?
Well, I think there's a lot of components to the concept of thriving as a member. Probably in 5 different areas that I think the members would feel that differently, but it would be important to them. And perhaps, in one area would be professionally, another area would be educationally. Another area would be, the emotional, physical aspect of it. And then servility, service, and then last, as we've already discussed, is advocacy. I think professionally, as far as that goes, as Dr. Mills mentioned the branding campaign. That's just been an outstanding campaign. And I think the SVS needs to double down on that and continue those efforts that he's initiated and get in front of the patients with our branding, get in front of students and let them know who we are. The intersocietal collaborations that have been established over the last couple of years have been tremendous, and we need to continue and nurture and maintain those relationships so that as much as we can speak as one voice when challenges come up. The other thing is there's a lot of just misinformation on the internet, and I'd like to see the SVS become the home for good information. And that could take a couple of ways, either just really driving traffic to our website with a great patient-facing page for information, or even developing an SVS seal where the SVS actually certifies that a website has accurate and appropriate information for patients and they're not confused. And then the SG2 SVS collaboration, in which we're collaborating with this subsidiary of Vizient to actually go to systems and use the financial background of SG2 and the knowledge background clinically from the SVS members to advise these systems on the value of a vascular service line and then what that should look like. As far as educationally, we've got VAM back again. I hope everybody's registered that can. It's launched already. We need to continue to work on the LMS and get that expanded and get the PVI course that that was proposed launched. It got misdirected by COVID, and then we need to embrace new educational opportunities. Whatever ideas we have or whatever opportunities arise, we need to just double down on those efforts to help our members. The Wellness Task Force is transitioning into a new entity after the review this next month. And we need to find a place for them so that they continue to fight back against burnout. And we can get the surgical coaching in place that they've offered, which is going to be a fantastic addition. And then we've got the service opportunities through the new VISTA program. And Dr. Mills is part of that. One of his projects was approved. So chance for our members to go out and do, almost missionary work, but missionary work here in the States, and not just make an impact on one patient at a time, but a community at a time. So I probably ran over. I apologize for that, but thanks, Clem.
Thanks, you. Joe, what can the SVS do to position itself for the members for the future?
Yeah, I think they're doing it. If you look, for those of us that have been part of the SVS for a long time, maybe once we were junior, all we saw was a meeting a year with two societies that were magically split in the middle, and some politics went on among a select group of people. And there's, as you saw from Dr. AbuRahma's talk, the conscious effort to be more inclusive has really been there, and a number of social things drove that. But I think what I would like to figure out how to do is get more and more involvement from our trainees and our members. So we have people on committees, but I think a lot of the members don't even know how hard some of these committees work and all the things that they're doing for our specialty. So how do we get more participation? And I think if we can convince the members that there's something in it for them, that it's going to help their practice and help their future, they'll participate more. I just to give an anecdote, when I first went into surgery, I always tried to prepare for everything, operations. And if I had meetings and I was looking for resources, I would prepare better than anybody. I would make sure I had all the data to support my position, and I would go in there and try to blow people out of the water. And I hope I've matured. I think you still have to prepare. There's no substitution for that. But what I've learned as I've gotten older is that sometimes you can have a great vision, but the more people you get involved in that vision. So if you actually ask some younger people, what concerns you? How can I help your practice? What do you worry about every day? Your vision gets better and gets refined. So I think if we can get all of our members to have the same vision, and this effort to have comprehensive vascular care define us is big, I think, because one of the things that really makes us different is we're not just proceduralists. So if we want to compete with those in our space, we have to be really good at procedures. But we don't want to lose the part of us that recognizes which patients aren't going to fare well with the procedure or don't need a procedure. And so we need to maintain that part of our heritage. So I would say what we should do is try to keep expanding the involvement that we have of our members and try to be unified, try to gain unanimity of where we're heading and stick with our path. Thank you.
Great, I'll go back. We're almost done. I want to thank both of you for sticking with me. We only have 2 more questions. And I'll go back to Bill. The world is changing around us in significant ways. How can the SVS best endure its evolving and staying current with the changing membership?
Well, this is a perfect segue because today the practice survey went out. So I hope everybody got that in their inbox. So beginning last fall, the SVS sent out a member census survey, and then today the SVS sent out a member practice survey. And the strategy is to have 2 different surveys addressing 2 different areas of our members, and then collect that longitudinally so we can keep our finger on the pulse of the membership and track how it changes. It only takes 10 to 12 minutes, so please fill it out. We'd really love to have a higher response rate, and I think this is a great way for the SVS to get that data, but we need your participation. Lastly, I'd like people to try to use the SVS Connect platform when they can. There's a lot of other platforms you can go on with social media and many for vascular or other medical topics, but this is the one that the SVS monitors, and this is the one that we can react to. So please use that so that anything that is of import to you can be raised to a high level pretty quickly. The last thing I would say that the SVS needs to have a philosophy when challenged with change, that as long as it fits our core values and purpose, then we should strongly consider that change. As Dr. Mills mentioned, this is a drastically different society than when I came out of training. In fact, when I came out of training, I wasn't even eligible to join our society. So things have come a long, long way. So I would say, as far as change goes, we need to embrace change. We need to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Thanks, Clem.
Thank you very much. Joe, the world is changing around us in significant ways. How can the SVS best ensure it is evolving and stay current with a changing membership?
Yeah, I think 2 things. One is that we need to keep defining ourselves and stick with that vision if it's the right vision. I think we're on the way to doing that. And the other is just engagement. I think that the town halls have been I think during the initial part of COVID, they were awesome because we had no other way to get together. And they went from kind of stilted meetings to meetings where people actually interacted to where after a while it was almost like being live. But I think maybe we need to figure out how to do that differently because it still is hard for a lot of people to participate. Some of the town halls have had, we have 3,000 members. I think one of the biggest town halls had maybe 300 sign up. We really want more people to participate. So I wondered, if you think about how democracy works, the old fashioned way that they still do in parts of New England and the way they often do in Holland is you sit down in a room and you talk through a problem until you solve it. And that's not the way our democracy works in our country anymore. And it's not really the way the SVS works. And I wonder if we should break down these mini town halls into little regional ones, invite local people that aren't well known nationally, but are in the trenches doing what we do every day. And they may have a different experience than somebody at a giant hospital, or they may run to 3 small hospitals and they may need help. So how do we help all of our members in different environments flourish? And we may get really good ideas from people that you wouldn't have thought would have good ideas, and you won't know unless you ask them. So one thought I had would be to break things down into smaller pieces and try to get more input. But the problem with the future is predicting the future is it hasn't happened yet. So it's always difficult. I think vascular surgery has proven really agile. I mean, there's no question we've done some pivots that really rescued our specialty and made it even greater than it was. I mean, if I think about my everyday clinical activity and what I do now compared to what I did when I started training, they're not even close to the same thing, but we treat the same patients and similar patients. So anyway, I think continued engagement and maybe smaller interactive sessions to get more people to contribute. That's how we adapt to change, because sometimes you don't hear about change. It happens in different parts of the country, right? When I came to Houston, it astounded me that vascular surgery didn't really have a separate identity in most of Houston. It was all CV surgery. Finally, after 5 years, we don't get called the CV service anymore. It's taken a while, and I'm sure there's pockets of that everywhere. So anyway, I think that's the answer.
Okay, final question, and I'll start with Joe. If elected, what will you be doing in the next 2 years to prepare yourself for the role of president?
First thing is listen. I think I've gotten much better at that as I've gotten older. And even when Spence Taylor used to give a great talk. So as far as I know, he's the only vascular surgeon that's founded a medical school. And he gave a just great talk. We actually got a coach. So most of us that have been in leadership positions kind of feel like, why do I need a coach? But there were a lot of politics involved in starting the medical school. And he used a comparison of most really good surgeons that are leaders are kind of like band leaders. We have the Sousa March, and I know how it's supposed to be played, and let's follow me, and we're going to do this. And that works in a small setting. But a really good leader is a shepherd. So you may have some idea where the target is and when you're trying to get there, but you kind of guide people gently. And I guess the difference from the shepherd is that the flock in this setting is the SVS membership, and they should have a lot more input. I mean, in the end, the sheep are going to go where they're supposed to go at the end of the day, right? But a good leader, you may take people off in a general direction, but exactly where you end up should be guided by the wisdom of the whole group. And I actually truly believe in that. Even my research studies, I'll send stuff by junior people, but everything I do now, I try to get multiple layers of insight and input. And it's amazing how you won't have thought of something until you ask for somebody's input. So if you can set up an atmosphere where people want to give input and won't be shamed for giving it, and doesn't mean you get your way every time, but at least you're listened to, I think that's huge. So to me, that's what I would do for the next 2 years is listen a lot. And I would try really hard to get into different parts of the country. I'm pretty familiar with the West and the South, but figure out what the different problems are for people in different settings. And then we can truly represent our whole society. Thank you.
Thank you. And to you, Bill, if elected, what will you be doing in the next 2 years to prepare yourself for the role of president?
Well, it's interesting. I've been on the executive board for 3 of the last 4 years. So I've actually had the privilege of watching that transition occur several times now. And it's apparent to me now that the onboarding process is actually pretty well set. And it's a great process for the vice president to move into the president-elect to move into the presidency. You're just thrown right into it right off the bat. There's executive board calls every 2 weeks where the business of the society is done. There's also leadership calls every week that the vice president is on to get into the weeds right off the bat. And then there are other calls that you can be on as well. I'd like to sit on the communications call that Dr. Amy Reed hosts to be, up to speed with what's going on there. And then the other thing is I already do have a pretty good background after, the last 4 or 5 years of how the society really functions with the councils, committees, and the other task forces. And what projects we've had and what projects we plan. There's like I'm gonna hope this shows up. I don't know, got kind of a printout here of like this grid of 10-page long grid of the projects that have been completed and the projects underway. So you kind of see that rolling along every 2 weeks as you have your EB call. So you'll be absorbing that. The other thing is, as president-elect, you have a couple obligations. One is to run the spring strategic board of directors meeting, at which time the platform for the following year comes out. And that turns out that's going to be your platform as president. So you'll be heavily involved in how that develops and then is implemented. The other thing is the Stanley Crawford Critical Issues Forum is something you're responsible as president-elect. And you obviously need to start that well in advance. And I've already thought that a great topic would be to address the regional vascular emergency care and use that forum to define the problem and hopefully point towards some solutions. And one of the solutions that I've been thinking about for a long time would be for the SVS to start a program similar to ACLS or ATLS called AVLS, or acute vascular life/limb salvage. And it would be for all providers that are faced with vascular emergencies and provide that knowledge that fills in the void that we see every day when we get called with an emergency, and give them some skills to help get some better upfront care before that patient is sent to us. I think that would serve our patients. I think it would serve our society. I think it would fit in nicely with our branding. So that's one of the things that I would be working on during that time period leading into presidency. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Joe and Bill, for giving the SVS members a chance to get to know each of you. And I want to thank the SVS members for all the work they do, the tremendous work they do for our patients, and to be part of the best profession in the entire world. And last thing I want to say is vote, vote, vote. Starts at the end of this meeting and goes for a week, and we need to have your participation. Ron, I'm happy to send it back to you.
Thank you, Clem, and thank you, Ali. Thanks, Joe and Bill, for being willing to serve. And thanks to the members of the Appointments and Nominations Committee for their hard work this year. The online election for Vice President will open following the conclusion of this town hall. All eligible members will receive an email with voting instructions at 8 p.m. Central Time this evening. Voting will remain open for 1 week until 5 p.m. Central Time Monday, May 24th. Members will receive multiple email blasts and reminders throughout the coming week. All active and senior members of the SVS in good standing are eligible to vote. If you try to vote and find that you're not eligible, please contact SVS staff at governance@vascularsociety.org, and this will be in your instructions. Don't forget that in addition to the Vice President election, there are 3 bylaw referendum changes that are also up for a vote. Please consider these carefully and vote as well. Candidate information and full explanation of the bylaws changes are included on the online ballot. I notice we've not had any comments in the chat. I want to appreciate everyone's participation and attendance, with the town hall this evening. With this, I declare the town hall adjourned and the election open. I also want to remind everyone to register for the VAM. Registration opened on Thursday, and we had 75 registrants within the first 18 hours. The only thing holding us back for an in-person VAM at this point is the interest of the members and attendees in actually being at a live conference. And so it's important for us to understand the interest of this event from our membership, and that's going to come from the registration information. We'll see you all again at the virtual business meeting on June 16th. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for your support of the SVS.